There's a book so short you can read it in 30 minutes. So powerful that soldiers carried it into battle, prisoners memorized it in captivity, and therapists still prescribe it today. It's been in continuous print for nearly 2,000 years, and it was written by a man who never wrote a word. It's called the Enchiridion, the Handbook, and if you only ever read one philosophy book in your entire life, this should be it. The Enchiridion is not really a book, it's a field manual. The word itself is Greek, and it means something you keep close at hand. A handbook, a weapon-sized guide you can carry into battle. That name was chosen deliberately. This was philosophy compressed for people who didn't have time for lengthy treatises, people who needed something they could use today. Epictetus, as we explored in his biography, never wrote anything down. He taught orally in a small school in Nicopolis, Greece. His student Arion attended the lectures and transcribed them into 2 works. The discourses are the longer collection, spanning 4 surviving books of detailed philosophical conversation. The Enchiridion is different. It's a distillation. Arion took the core principles from the discourses and compressed them into 53 short chapters. Some are a single paragraph. The longest is maybe a page. Think of the discourses as the classroom. The Enchiridion is the cheat sheet you take into the exam. It strips away the discussion, the examples, the back and forth with students, and leaves only the rules. Here's what is up to you. Here's what isn't. Here's how to handle desire. Here's how to handle loss. Here's how to behave in public. Here's how to live. That compression is what gives the Enchiridion its unique power. There is no filler. Every sentence is a direct instruction. And because it's so short, you can read it in a single sitting and then return to it daily, the way a musician returns to scales. Not to learn something new each time, to deepen what you already know. The Enchiridion opens with the sentence that defines everything Epictetus taught. Some things are within our power while others are not. We've explored this idea in depth in the dichotomy of control video. But here in the Enchiridion, it's presented with a severity that the discourses don't quite match. Epictetus doesn't ease you in. He doesn't warm you up. He states the principle and then immediately tells you the consequences of ignoring it. He says, if you try to control what isn't yours, you will be hindered, disturbed, and blame both gods and men. If you confine your efforts to what is yours, no one will ever compel you, no one will hinder you, you will find fault with no one, accuse no one, and do nothing against your will. Notice the symmetry. The promise isn't happiness, it's freedom from disturbance. Epictetus is not selling you a good life, he's selling you an unshakable life. A life where external chaos cannot reach the core of who you are. And the price of that life is giving up the illusion that you can control anything outside your own mind. Chapter 1 is the foundation that every other chapter rests on. Get this wrong and nothing else in the book works. Get this right and everything else is commentary. After establishing what you can and cannot control, Epictetus turns to the forces that drive most human suffering, desire and aversion, what you want and what you fear. In Chapter 5, he delivers the line that we built an entire video around. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. Here in the Enchiridion, it arrives without explanation, just the statement. You're expected to sit with it and figure out how it applies to your life. Chapters 6 through 8 extend this into practical territory. Epictetus tells you not to take pride in things that don't belong to you. Your horse is fast. That's the horse's excellence, not yours. Your child is beautiful. That's nature's work, not your achievement. The moment you attach your identity to something outside your control, you've handed someone or something else the power to destroy your peace. He then applies the same logic to loss. When you lose something, don't say, I have lost it. Say, I have returned it. Your property was never yours. It was on loan. Your spouse, your health, your position, all of it temporary, all of it borrowed. And when it goes back, the only question is whether you had the wisdom to hold it lightly while it was here. This passage is one of the most challenging in all of Stoicism, but it's also one of the most freeing, because the grief that comes from loss is almost always amplified by the belief that you were entitled to keep what you had. Remove that belief and the grief remains, but the devastation softens. You still feel the loss, you just don't feel robbed. The Enchiridion isn't only about inner life. Epictetus spends several chapters on how to conduct yourself around other people, and his advice is startlingly specific. In chapter 33, he gives a list of practical social rules. Don't talk excessively about yourself. Don't try to make others laugh with crude humor. Don't gossip. When others gossip around you, redirect the conversation or stay silent. At social events, behave simply. Don't try to impress. These sound like basic etiquette, but Epictetus frames them philosophically. Every social interaction is a test of your character. When you dominate a conversation, you're revealing insecurity, not confidence. When you gossip, you're wasting mental energy on things that are not up to you. When you perform for approval, you're handing control of your self-worth to people who probably aren't paying attention anyway. Chapter 35 adds a sharper point. When you decide something is right, do it. Don't explain yourself. Don't justify your choices to people who didn't ask. The chapter ends with one of the most quoted lines in the Enchiridion. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That sentence is the entire book in 5 words. The Enchiridion doesn't ask you to understand Stoicism. It asks you to live it. And the distance between those two things is the distance between reading about exercise and actually going to the gym. The Enchiridion ends with a choice. Epictetus tells you, from this point forward, you can either live as a philosopher or live as an ordinary person. There is no middle ground. He doesn't soften this. He says, if you commit to philosophy, expect to be laughed at. Expect people to say you've changed and not as a compliment. Expect to lose certain friendships, certain pleasures, certain social advantages. The philosophical life costs something, and you need to decide whether you're willing to pay. But he also says this: if you try to live with one foot in philosophy and one foot in the world's distractions, you will fail at both. You'll have all the restrictions of philosophical discipline without any of its rewards, and you'll have all the temptations of ordinary life without any of its oblivion. The middle ground is the worst possible place to stand. This final chapter is Epictetus at his most demanding. He's looking at you across 20 centuries and asking, are you serious about this? Are you willing to do the work, not just read about it? Because the Enchiridion is only 30 minutes of reading, but living it is the project of an entire lifetime. And that project, chosen deliberately and pursued consistently, is what the Stoics called freedom. Here's your challenge. Read the entire Enchiridion this week. It's free online. It takes 30 minutes. Treat it not as ancient philosophy, but as a letter written directly to you about the specific problems you're facing right now. As you read, highlight 3 passages. Not the ones that sound the most impressive. The 3 that feel like they were written specifically for your current situation. The ones that sting. The ones your mind pushes back against. Then write those 3 passages on a card and keep them with you for 7 days. Read them each morning. Epictetus designed this book to be carried, not shelved, carried. Into your meetings, into your relationships, into your worst days. That's why it's called a handbook. 2,000 years ago, a former slave who never wrote a single word produced, through his students' transcription, the shortest and most powerful philosophy book ever made. Soldiers carried it into battle. Prisoners recited it from memory. And it's waiting for you right now, for free, whenever you're ready to stop reading about how to live and actually begin. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. If this changed how you think about what philosophy is, subscribe for more ancient wisdom that still works today. Drop a comment telling me which Enchiridion chapter hit you hardest. I read every single one.